Hi, I'm Diane Perlman from Washington, D.C., and I want to thank profusely the Whistleblower Summit organizers, Marcel Reed and Michael McRae, for allowing us and for accepting our panel on HOA, capture, entrapment, and abuse. And I recently got in touch with Patrick Johansson, who started HOA Reform Leaders National Group. And he did an amazing job reaching out to people and asking questions. So he's going to take it from here, and then I'm going to come back at the end. So anyway, thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. So I'm Patrick Johansson, and we're here today to talk about homeowner and condo associations, which we will refer to through the meeting as HOAs. All the people here tonight are whistleblowers, and many have suffered great losses in their lives because of it. We've all reported legal actions of our board members to our HOAs, the board members of our HOAs to all levels of government, including our attorneys general, the state senators and representatives, and many government agencies that one would expect would handle dishonesty in housing and real estate. All of us all told us there was nothing they could do. Our HOA board members have filed against us, trespassed on our properties, damaged our properties, threatened us, harassed us, refused to make repairs on roofs, decks, fences, and exteriors of our condos and other common parts or areas of our properties, falsely filing lawsuits against us just to run us out of money, and even telling us they were going to force us out of the community. In some cases, they even foreclosed on our homes. Our panel today is made up of brave leaders from around the country who have joined together in an effort to change the laws of the United States, of all the states, to protect and benefit the homeowners who live in HOAs. I will ask each of the panel members to briefly introduce themselves, your name, organization you lead, your state, and how many years you've been working on HOA reform. Dennis, maybe you could start.
I'm Dennis Leshier. I lead the Arizona Homeowners Coalition. I founded this coalition in 2016. And after 2 years of fighting with my own HOA and winning lawsuits against that association, I am a designated lobbyist for the coalition of all homeowners. We're a volunteer organization. We work in Arizona, and I represent all homeowners living in Arizona in HOAs and condominiums.
Thank you very much. I'll be speaking for Candace Cartine. She wanted to be here tonight and wrote in answers for questions, but wasn't able to be here. Candace Cartine is an HOA homeowner in the state of Washington. She's been fighting for HOA reform for about 8 years, but wasn't able to make it. I'll be reading her responses today. Amanda?
Thank you. I'm Amanda Dutton. I am a homeowner in Georgia. My neighborhood is under a fake OA. They are a recreation association who's behaving like an HOA, even though they don't have the legal, technically don't have the legal right to do so. And I'm trying to get neighbors organized to fight it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen? Oh, Ellen's not here. I'm sorry. Athena? Athena, are you on?
Unmute.
Right. Athena Vincent, NorCal Alliance, California. We've been in existence for 8 months.
Sam?
I am Sam Barker, and I represent the American Coalition of Homeowners Association, a group that there's a lot of irate people, and it was started by another lady. She did it for many years, and she just can't fight anymore. So I'm taking over her fight for her.
Thank you. And Deborah?
Hi, I'm Deborah Goonan, and I am the administrator and author of Independent American Communities. It's a blog about HOA issues that talks about the problems and possible solutions. And I follow the news nationally as to legislative updates that are going on and significant lawsuits. And that's it. Yeah.
Raylene?
Yeah, I'm Raylene Schifano. I started the nonprofit HOA Fight Club. I started the nonprofit in 2020, but I've been fighting for homeowners and my own rights since about 2016. I help people across the nation for free, deal with their boards, educate them, and give them possible solutions on their issues with their HOAs.
Thank you. Diane?
Oh, okay. I'm Diane Perlman. I'm in Washington, DC, and I live in an HOA, obviously, and I've been retaliated against for raising issues about toxic mold in the building, and I've testified 9 times in DC Council and reached out to everybody in every branch of government, and the laws just got worse. So I'm
Thank
hoping
you.
this will help us. Yeah.
I'm Patrick Johansson. I'm with Rise Up Washington, and also HOAreview.com and HOA Reform Leaders National Group. I'm in Washington, and I've been battling for better laws for HOAs for about 8 years. So let's jump right in. Let's start with defining the problem. So I'd like each of you to tell me your thoughts on this. What do you see as being the main problems regarding HOAs? Dennis?
Unmute.
We go to someone else.
All right,
Dennis,
I got it.
There it goes.
The entire
Okay.
concept of flawed interest of common interest communities was flawed from the very onset because it was used as a means for municipalities to escape the needs of providing recreational facilities or open land to accompany increased housing demands, and failed to recognize the fundamental flaws of human nature. The use of covenants for these communities were originally based on racial segregation, but once those were banned, reverted to the totally baseless premise that restrictions on private property rights protect property values. These communities are just that, communities first, where people live and raise their families. The governance scheme as nonprofit corporations over these communities was chosen to facilitate operations and for tax advantages. These are not corporations in any way. They are mini local governments, but CAI and the HOA industry has chosen to argue and build into state laws that these communities are subject to corporate law and that covenants are freely negotiated contracts, thereby excluding all the people that live in them from the rights, including the rights and protections bestowed by the Constitution of the United States and your individual states. There are no checks and balances in the governance of these communities other than through the court system. The board of directors are empowered to act as all branches of the government scheme, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch of the organization. Whenever state laws provide restrictions on this power, compliance with those laws is totally optional because the enforcement of those laws is left up to the homeowners by use of their own finances to sue the association for violating the law. Win or lose in any litigation to enforce the law, the homeowner always pays. The association uses that reality to discredit and suppress any opposition to their actions. Community developers, known as declarants, write the covenants and restrictions to protect their interest in developing the communities without any scrutiny on the legitimacy or even legality of what can be put in these covenants, especially the ability of these associations to create additional rules and policies outside these recorded covenants and then provide the created association the unlimited ability to fine and penalize alleged violation of those rules without any due process of law. State laws relative to these communities, including the uniform state statutes, have been dominated by the HOA industry trade organizations and the high-paid lobbyists funded by these organizations, and written with intentional vagueness to maximize the ability of attorneys to interpret the law in any way they see fit. These HOA trade groups, including state municipalities and counties, Community Association Institute, CAI, the Home Builders Associations, the State Realtors Associations, and the local community managers trade organizations. CAI is a national organization with chapters in every state, that was founded in the 1950s to promote the development of affordable housing, but has evolved into an organization of attorneys focused on preserving and protecting the golden goose that is these communities for the financial benefit of all trade organizations that tap into these communities' unlimited ability to raise money from the homeowners. None of these organizations represent the interest of the homeowners actually living in these communities, whether they are board members or simple residents. It is no wonder that few state laws actually protect homeowner rights. The absolute power given to board members in these communities will corrupt the most well-intentioned community members that choose to run for these positions out of a sense of duty to their community. This unrestrained power has far too often resulted in the abuse of that power to censure, discredit, intimidate, and weaponize the ability to fine and foreclose on the homes based on any opposition to their decisions or actions, or the ability to retain that power. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be speaking for Candace, who wrote, "The main problem is that the government continues to allow developers to build HOAs with no governmental control required. The developers build, sell, and simply walk away and leave the HOA with no oversight and no government agency to turn to when problems arise. Many HOAs are struggling to gain back control from rogue members who gather together to form closed oligarchies so that only their desires can be heard, incorporated, and enforced. This kind of political power means that a tiny group of members control not only the board of trustees, but who gets elected to the board, all committees, all office staff, temporary and permanent staff, and all employees. This setup causes the remaining HOA members to have no place else to turn except to the court system. Many people who have bought into HOAs did so in their latter years. They thought it was a way of having a perfect home in an area they love. Never did they think that they would have to seek an attorney to fight the corruption happening in their own HOA. Not only are they paying for the board of trustees to actually harass, bully, threaten, fine, and act uncivil to them, but they also have to use the retirement savings in order to fight an organization that's supposed to be making their lives better." Sam?
I feel that the main problem with HOAs today is the amount of power that has been given to the board. Another major problem is developer turnover to an HOA board. That's one of the problems that Donna was dealing with over in Point Siena. Many HOAs across the country are no longer being run like they were in the past. There are too many state laws that have been passed in the last 10 years or so, giving boards too much power. These type of laws are a major cause of discord between neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn?
Hi, I'm Caroline Kubler. I'm a former condo owner and acting condo owner president of the Condo Association and HOA member from Pennsylvania. I've spent over 20 years in advocacy and helping educate and write and helping people write books and getting information transmitted across the country and beyond. I honestly don't believe there's one main problem. I believe there's a complexity of problems in homeowner abuses. Far too many HOAs, it appears, carry out the most horrific and unjustified homeowner abuses. Homeowner property theft through fraudulent foreclosures, financial abuses, property destruction abuses, threats, terroristic acts, harassment and sexual harassment, character destruction, stalking, and far likely more. They invade the privacy of their selectively targeted victim and their friends to intimidate them and even frighten and abuse children. Yet some board members violate the community rules and regulations, CCNRs, etc., for years and years, and they are never held accountable. The unthinkable abuses to the disabled, elders, single female, single male households, and single parent households appear to be the most egregious, malicious, and criminal as I see it. What about these abusive criminal groups' foreclosures for the projected cost of a foreclosure? One would never think this would be allowed by any court, yet it has and probably still happening to innocent and unsuspecting vulnerable homeowners associations in America. HOAs in America are the breeding grounds and perpetrators of the new domestic violence.
Thank you.
Thank
Athena?
you. Mhm.
Oh, I'm going to pass and come at the end. Okay.
I believe,
Athena?
I believe the main issues are lack of transparency and limited recourse. Condo and townhomes are often touted as affordable housing, but at what cost? Loss of civil rights, and homeowners are relegated to suing themselves and in some cases their neighbors when things go sideways.
Thank you. Deborah?
The main problems in HOAs, I think, are threefold. First, we have a top-down corporate style HOA governance model. It puts too much power in the hands of too few people. As I've said previously, HOAs have too much power and almost no accountability. Second, more importantly, the underlying reason for HOAs, which is shared ownership of property, is problematic. It doesn't matter if the HOA consists of 2 properties or more than 1,000 properties. The common interest ownership development model for property ownership is fundamentally flawed. In general, when you throw people together who are unrelated and have differing values and priorities, with zero personal commitment to fellow HOA members, conflict is inevitable. With the exception of co-housing co-ops, also called intentional living communities, members do not get to choose their co-members. Anyone who can pay for a condo, townhouse, or detached home and who agrees to at the time of sale to pay HOA fees becomes a member of the HOA. And later on, it becomes apparent that certain members cannot really afford to own their home. Others have oodles of money and own several homes as investments. Some owners are more responsible about maintenance and they pay their fees on time. Other members are less responsible. Some members crave power over their neighbors. A few neighbors seem to enjoy reporting violations and or harassing neighbors they don't like, using the enforcement of HOA rules as a weapon. Third, when you add the toxic self-interested influence of real estate developers, community management firms, and HOA attorneys, you have a recipe for disaster. But keep in mind that some 40% of HOAs are small and self-managed. So the first 2 problems, in my view, are more prominent than the evil influence of the HOA industry.
Thank you. Raylene?
The main problem I see is the professionals taking control of our communities and using homeowners' ignorance of the governing documents and the laws to control our communities. Homeowners don't understand the demands of being a member of a corporation and that they should be very involved. Community Associations Institute, the professionals, lobbyists, they run these communities that are supposed to be self-governed by the members. CAI has full access to the legislators and our investments, which is the furthest and they convince the legislators that they are the guru of HOA and they protect our investments, which is furthest from the truth. The lobbyists steal our home. They lobby to steal our homes and with super priority liens and non-judicial foreclosure. Attorneys use their fees to force homeowners to their knees. In Washington, almost 90% of foreclosures are due to the HOA foreclosing, not the mortgage. I have exposed this scam to the legislators, but they have ignored the evidence. This is why we have a middle housing crisis in Washington state. Thank you.
Thank you, Raylene. Excellent, everybody. We all seem to agree in many ways about what's happening. So our second question today,
But that's
many of our have referred to HOAs as dictatorships. Do you think that's a valid name for these, and why? Candace writes, I do believe that many HOAs are run as dictatorships. I'm living in one of them. I prefer to call ours an oligarchy. A small group of people who are singularly minded took over our HOA and excluded anyone with a different opinion or concern that does not meet their particular wants, needs, and desires, and started to ugly head to raise. In my case, the beast was hatched more than 50 years ago. Only a small percentage of the lots were inhabited. They had no pressure on the land and no situations of neighbors living close by. But as you fast forward 50 years, the same area has become 2,800 lots with over 2,300 members. 36% of the lots contain year-round homes, and the rest are lots with RVs, trailers, tents, day use lots, and vacant land. A lot of our lots are a lot smaller than would normally be allowed in our county. Now, as the problem and conflicts are increasing, the oligarchy is dominating all aspects of the HOA in order to raise the sellable price of their homes while devaluating the price of the other homes. One of the main problems is that the members of the oligarchy all live on the top of a hill where they have a view of the ocean. They're under the delusion that someone gave them the right to have a 180-degree view of the ocean from every window in their home. This guarantee isn't included in any of our documents, nor does the state of Washington provide this provision for homeowners. The oligarchy in my HOA, known as the Surfside Preservation, started forcing members to top and kill their trees by adding to the covenants to justify the tree removal. Over the past 4 years, the homes on the west side of our community have dropped in price by between $50,000 to $100,000, while the oligarchy's homes have raised that much or more. Our own owners don't comply with, if owners don't comply with their demands, they're fined $20 a day for the first 30 days and then $30 a day until the trees are taken down. So we are not only losing value on our properties, but we're required to pay thousands to kill our trees. And there is no talking to the oligarchs. Communication's been denied and appeals are denied. If you're not behind the oligarchy rules, then you just don't exist except as an irritant. Now that's a true dictatorship.
Definitely.
Sam Barker?
I totally agree with the statement. Many HOAs have become dictatorships. If the homeowner is a few $1,000s in arrears, many states have given the board the authority to foreclose on that home. Along with non-payment of dues, many states have given the board authority to foreclose on a home for property violations, resulting in monetary penalties.
Thank you. Carolyn?
Yes. Yes, I simply believe that they're dictatorships. One only simply has to look at the cases. Sadly, the countless cases. And I have to say, add to that, that you have no idea how ashamed I am of my former neighbors and certain people in our community. And it's just appalling, absolutely appalling of what people are capable of. And we need to do better for everybody, especially our children and grandchildren in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Athena?
Absolutely. There is no floor to the HOA injustice, selective enforcement, harassment, discrimination, failure to maintain common areas, embezzlement, you name it. Just look at Surfside and hammocks. It's so bad that I would say it is not just a failure of modern governance, but also a public health crisis. HOA injustice has caused people to lose their homes and in some cases their lives.
Thank you. Deborah?
Some HOAs can resemble dictatorships when one board member dominates the HOA, or when the HOA is still under developer control. Members at large have very little control over the decisions of their HOA, especially if it's under a declarant or developer-controlled and appointed HOA board. Even when the HOA board is led by non-developer affiliated homeowners, it's exceedingly difficult to stage a recall of a rogue board. Plus, it's often difficult to find enough owners able and willing to serve on their HOA board. This is a big problem in small communities, but can also be a problem in larger communities with a lot of out-of-towners or retirees with age-related health problems. In these cases, it's possible that one, maybe two people take over the HOA, and sometimes that person is the HOA manager. Technically, HOAs are set up as nonprofit organizations, and many, but not all, are incorporated. It depends on state laws and the age of the association. Some states require HOAs to incorporate, others do not. Older associations may be grandfathered in to be unincorporated. In most cases, the HOA is not actually a dictatorship, but it's often dysfunctional due to a number of other factors: incompetent leaders, board members with a personal agenda, personal conflicts of interest, toxic personalities, bully board members, internal conflict among board members. A great many board members abdicate their duties to the HOA manager and the experts, including HOA attorneys, It's simply easier to pay someone else to do the work and drive all the decisions. Thank you.
Raylene.
Yes, I believe that these are dictatorships. The board is above the governing documents and the laws, so it's not a fair and equal situation. With no oversight or governance by our government officials, boards can violate the laws with no penalties, which enables them to become power hungry and in essence, a dictatorship. Members can become a target when they question the board, fined, and forced into foreclosure. That's a dictatorship when no judicial review or due process is required. I was fined for my husband smoking in our backyard. The date of the violation occurred, my husband and I were in another state and could not have committed the crime. The board spent $15,000 of the association funds coming after me for a violation they knew we didn't commit. Only a dictatorship could do this. The attorney was the enforcer, and this was a police state. Thank you.
One more question. So what do you feel are the dangers of living in an HOA? So I'll be speaking for Candace. The question depends totally on the individual HOA you live in. The home I bought about 20 years ago is located on a beautiful lake 2 blocks from the park. This is not the same place now. My lake continues to be unmanaged and is covered with a toxic blue-green algae. Thus, our health and the health of our families, friends, pets, and wildlife are in danger. The Board of Trustees planted grass carp in the lakes and canals to eat down the overgrown plants in the waterways and never managed the released fish. Now these fish are eating our garden grasses and bush roots around the lake because they're starving. Thus, our land is now being dissolved. We have lost 3/4 of the fowl and wildlife that used to visit our area every year due to this toxic environment. Due to the requirements that the trees be topped our roof heights to our roof heights and removed if they die, the trees around the lake have been completely removed. During the winter gales and winter storms and flooding months, well, it weighs heavily on each of us as the trees no longer block the wind or absorb the rain. Thus, the enjoyment of the mental health of our aspects of our lives has disappeared. Our governing documents only allow the board to change the covenants. The members don't vote. The board refuses to even discuss changes we propose. When we try to object or change the covenants and run for the board, our members have been bullied, threatened, harassed, yelled at, ignored, called liars, stalked, and had groups of committee members and employees assigned by our Board of Trustees to use any tactics that would make the members back down in fear of retaliation or selective enforcement. Amanda?
Thank you. I answered all the questions in one answer, so if I backtrack a little, that's why. My answer to all these questions was that the main problem and danger that I feel all other problems and dangers stem from is the fact that HOAs are micro-governments, which can and do act outside of any state or federal government agency or oversight, and they have plenary power over their members. They have the ability to completely destroy American citizens' existence through unregulated fines, liens, and foreclosure, for what many people would consider to be arbitrary, petty, subjective, and vindictive reasons. To be clear, despite any CC&Rs, declarations, or other documents filed with state, county, or municipal governments which present a facade of legality, HOAs can and do act independently of and outside of U.S., state, and federal law. Resident members of HOAs are legally denied the rights and protections granted to them by the United States Constitution, and they have no reasonable or affordable recourse to attempt to defend and recover those rights outside of lengthy and prohibitively expensive lawsuits. HOAs are not legally identified or defined either as government entities or as corporations, so few or no legal precedents exist to guide courts in making fair and just determinations. Additionally, this also means that there is no oversight or accountability structures in place to check the balance of power of these groups. In short, HOAs can and do completely sidestep American law and the justice system in order to protect, maintain, and perpetuate their own microgovernments according to their own personal desires and regime politics to which the member citizens have no recourse or defense, and which they must obey lest they be subjected to financial annihilation. Britannica defines a dictatorship as, quote, a form of government in which one person or a small group possesses absolute power without effective constitutional limitations. It is really hard to argue that HOAs do not fit this description. Thank you.
Thank you. Athena, your thoughts?
The industry has shown it is incapable of regulating itself. It is an arcane dinosaur from a bygone era that has not evolved to meet the needs of homeowners. Developers are not accountable for their construction quality, nor are boards accountable for their deferred maintenance. And then there are conundrums of double taxation and restriction of homeowners' rights. At the root of the issue, developers for decades have been convincing cities they can give up responsibility for maintaining infrastructure and transfer it to the community in the form of HOA dues. Cities in return allow developers to build housing with complex adhesion contracts. Oftentimes, these developers cut corners on building quality. The end result is that developers line their pockets. Cities continue to tax homeowners at the same rate for less services provided, and homeowners are stripped of rights. After the buildings are in place, HOA boards continually defer maintenance to keep fees low. This is done to appease homeowners and local real estate agents. Homeowners are often told it's either no big deal or to delay, or they'll be kept in the dark until it's too late.
Thank you. Sam, your thoughts? Sam?
Sam looks like she has dropped off for some reason.
Okay, Carolyn, please.
Yes,
Carolyn?
yes, seriously, buying in an HOA puts in danger of you losing your entire future, your home, your healthcare, your health, educational opportunities, having to leave your friends because of violence and threats, ongoing property damages, fraudulent lawsuits, threats of physical harm, and character assassination. If you speak out against the board, what the board is doing, they can and will selectively target you for this. In some areas of the country, the courts seem to work with the corrupt boards to cheat the homeowners. It's sickening, actually really sickening. Women have no rights in some jurisdictions. They have no right to justice. They have no right to speak up and tell the truth. It's so sad and really sickening that this is happening in America. I used to think that HOAs were a public health urgency. I honestly believe that they're actually a public health crisis unless we turn this around and do something to stop this egregious and horrible abuse of homeowners in America. Thank you.
Raylene?
Homeowners in these communities don't understand that a lien is already perfected on their homes when they purchase. With that power, the volunteer board has power of attorney over their homes. These boards are uneducated and volunteers, and no one should have that power of attorney over our homes. With that power, they can foreclose within as little as 90 days for fines, fees, or whatever they want to add to your account. There's also no demand of transparency or penalties for not being transparent, which allows for fraud and mismanagement of our association funds, which is also our investments. We need oversight over the professionals. CAI should not be the monopoly over our communities and should not be creating laws that benefit a trades group. CAI does not protect our communities, but lobbies for their personal benefits. We need oversight over the uneducated volunteer boards to bring them into compliance when they are in violation. Without penalties, which could be financial or even just removal from the board, they are allowed to continue hurting our communities and our investments for their own personal gains. We shouldn't have to fight for one homeowner at a time. Thank you.
Okay, I think that gives us a pretty good feel of what the problems are. Now we need to understand how to fix it. What do you feel are the solutions? Amanda, can you start?
Yes, thank you. I currently suggest 5 things. Number 1, real accountability to an office or department of the United States government that oversees HOAs and regulates their operations. This office will require that HOAs and similar groups have state-issued licenses to exist and act comparable to a business license, and which must be renewed periodically after an accreditation process. Number 2, reasonable, affordable, and universally accessible means for resident members to register a complaint with the Oversight Office. Number 3, personal consequences for bad actors of HOA boards for violation of agreed upon policies or state or federal law. Number 4, limiting of HOA's scope of power to levy fines or liens not in excess of a certain reasonable amount, and absolute denial of their ability to foreclose on a resident's home. And finally, clear legal definitions with specific criteria to determine what HOAs are they corporate bodies or governing bodies, the laws of which, however they're defined, HOAs are bound to. Should an association not meet the specific criteria, and therefore the definition, they will then be denied the right to act with no rights or claims over their neighbor citizens' property or finances. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Athena?
The entire HOA ecosystem needs to be revamped and dedicated to transparency and accountability. This includes fully disclosing all conflicts of interest, either super strong checks and balances that cannot be continually abused by boards, managers, and developers, or some sort of government division dedicated to recourse for homeowners affected by HOA issues. For example, a division of the Department of Real Estate. Developers must be held responsible and accountable for safe construction and maintenance so that construction does not cut corners and maintenance is not deferred until it's too late. Boards must be held responsible and accountable for safe maintenance so that it is not deferred until it's too late, implementing stronger requirements for timely resolution of maintenance issues. The government needs to reimburse HOA homeowners the tax difference for infrastructure that would have otherwise been covered by the government, such as road maintenance. Municipalities must cease mandating HOAs to shirk their responsibilities for infrastructure and maintenance. States need to hold developers accountable for quality and safety standards. And finally, states need a homeowner's bill of rights that includes protections for homeowners' civil rights within HOAs.
Thank you very much. Deborah, your thoughts?
My thoughts are three different things. First of all, I think that we need to end local government mandates for common interest development in HOAs. This would create competition and non-HOA alternatives in the housing market. The industry has no motivation to change as long as it's the only game in town. And in certain parts of the US and certain metropolitan areas and states, it's nearly impossible for a consumer to find a home that doesn't have some sort of an HOA attached to it. Phase out private association funding of construction, maintenance, and management of public works infrastructure. HOAs don't have the financial or leadership resources to adequately fulfill these duties. Governments generally have greater economies of scale and have access to professional engineers and contractors. And number three, do away with the strict management hierarchy that dominates over remaining members. HOA boards have too much power. Repeal and prohibit the right of HOAs to fine owners and restrict the rights of HOAs to foreclose on properties. Give owners more personal transparency and control over the establishment of their HOA annual budget. At the same time, enact strict limits and caps on attorney and management fees related to HOA collections and foreclosures. Thank you.
Thank you. Raylene?
I agree with all the above. I think that we can create as many solutions, but with no governance or oversight by the Attorney General's office in each state, we are allowing this to continue. And we have to have the Attorney Generals or an office or division of the state that can investigate, implement decisions, including fines or removal of a board, or nothing will change. And in doing so, we are only hurting our communities. And we, HOAs, are the cause of middle housing crises across the United States and a lot of the homeless people in our states. So we need to really put the Attorney General's office in each state on notice. Thank you. Dennis,
your thoughts?
My thoughts differ slightly from the previous speakers. I believe that based on the characteristics of my own state in Arizona, that the key to solving the problems in these communities lies in empowering and engaging the homeowners to access as checks and balances to counter the inappropriate actions of the board or to enforce the governing documents of state laws without litigation. Development of state laws should focus on empowering the members of the communities to enforce the laws and solving their own problems by working together for their communities. The homeowners must be granted free speech without fear of reprisal as guaranteed to the Constitution, and veto power over any decision of the board that violates the law or the community documents without litigation. Homeowners must be granted ratification rights over the projected budgets and the special assessments deemed necessary by the board prior to implementation of that budget and the associated annual assessment or special assessment. Transparency of all actions of the board based on reasonable, clear, and strong open meeting and records request provisions in state law will prevent the abuses of power and enforcement or the breach of fiduciary duties of the board to the community. The light of day is a very powerful force towards accountability. Transparency in the governance of these communities builds trust between the board and the members. And that trust then builds respect for one another. With respect between boards and homeowners, communities are built. State laws should establish clear and specific policy on the ability of all homeowners to vote and run for office based only on objective criteria independent from the subjective influence of sitting boards. State laws must establish maximum flexibility and secret ballots while maintaining the integrity and trust in the voting process and the absolute duty of the association boards to hold fair, open elections and invalidate any election or ballot measure where those integrity standards are violated. The American law—
We've got about 10 seconds left, if you can wrap that up.
The American Law Institute created in 2000 the most distinguished legal minds in the country. After 16 years of research, established the Restatement of Law Third for property servitude. The restatement compiled the common law principles truly governing all aspects of these common interest communities. It clearly established the fact that the combination of contract and property law govern these communities, not corporate law. The restatement is the true benchmark for these communities and the guiding path to successful operation of these communities. Since introduced, the courts have used the restatements to decide cases, but based on the fact that the restatement totally undermines all of CAI's model for these communities, CAI has fought hard to resist modifications of state laws to embrace the principles of the restatement.
Thank you very much. So I think everybody did a great job. It's interesting how close everybody feels in hearing people from all different directions and all coming basically to pointing in the same direction. Diane Perlman now will make some closing remarks.
Okay, I just wanted to add something to the last question that wasn't said. Well, two things. There's some people think we should ban HOAs altogether and they can't be reformed, and there needs to be another system, but that's above my area of knowledge. But the other thing I was going to suggest is that we need an ombudsperson or a mediator or something in the very, 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 very beginning. As soon as a conflict arises, every conflict I've seen is usually unnecessary. But if there's a third party in the government that I could have called and said there's toxic mold in my building and that they could have given me some backup and leverage, it could have prevented everything. So I think we need an ombudsperson. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about the system of interlocking parts. And a lot of people talked about the boards, but in my experience, the boards, they don't figure this out all by themselves. They don't make this up. They're instructed and directed by the condo lawyer. And in my building, and I've had 7 boards in a row all act in the same playbook, meaning each one denied mold, refused to, I have a lot of knowledge and expertise, all learned the hard way, and I could have helped my building become a healthy building, and they wouldn't they refused to talk to me. And I also, a psychologist, but trained as a mediator and in the field of conflict transformation. And I kept trying to say, just talk to me, just to talk directly. And they all refused to talk to me, and they forced me into an adversarial position. So I could have easily mediated the conflict if it was between 2 parties, but as the second party, I was completely outgunned. So I made this chart. So I just want to show, here is the condo lawyer. And also I want to blow the whistle on the Legislative Action Committee of the CAI, Community Associations Institute. And I want to say there are many wonderful, honest, decent, ethical lawyers that are members of CAI. But every case that I've seen has been where people have been sued. that the lawyers who are suing them are in the Legislative Action Committee, the CAI. So one example, I'll just say, so here's the condo lawyer. One is they influence the DC council members. They write the legislation. They testify for and against legislation for condo owners' rights. They mark up the legislation. And I'll give an example of that. There was legislation, I was told it was proposed because of me. It was a condo rights law. And we were, there was a hearing on December 7th, 2015. And I met people and connected with people. So three of us who were testifying in favor of the condo rights bill were being sued by 3 lawyers from the CAI Legislative Action Committees, chairs or co-chairs in Washington or Maryland. So the people who were testifying against the bill were suing the people who were testifying for the bill. And they would lie and say things like, you know, oh, it's a burden on the community and these people are delinquent and we give them options and we try to resolve conflicts. Anyway, I've documented everything and I can prove that that's not right. So that's one thing, is they affect legislation. They also affect, influence the courts and the judges know them, and also they know the system. And when they go in, you know, they have lots of experience and money, and they, as you said, they make money whether they win or lose. The board also, so I don't know if each of these parts know of the other parts, and I don't know whether it's actually a racket.
It's a racket.
It's a racket. Okay, so so my mortgage company is Chase. So one day I went on the roof deck with my daughter and her baby a few years ago. And the president of the board said, "You're not allowed here." And I said, "Why?" He said, "You're not paying your condo fees." I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Our lawyers said that you're not, and your mortgage company is paying them." So after a few hours on the phone, I found out that the condo lawyer told Chase that I wasn't paying. So they started paying without telling me. So for 15 months, the management company got 2 checks, one check from me and 1 check from Chase. So there's another word. So there, and any lawyer can lie, call the mortgage company and lie to them or give them false information, and they'll fork out money without question. They didn't call me or ask for approval. I ended up having $190,000 of legal fees, and I had to declare bankruptcy. And there was an error. Anyway, I got a lawyer from the DC Housing Counseling Service and he found an error. So I got a letter after trying to resolve things with the management company and asking that. Also, the management company can put you on a block list, and the condo lawyer can tell the management company to block you. So fees that I paid on time were rejected. And then there are late fees, legal fees, and administrative fees. So there are all these dirty tricks.
Yeah.
But then this one's really bad. So with Chase, so then my lawyer, so I got was served saying that I had to pay $38,000 for, and if I didn't, there would be an auction sale. So we found an error. So then a month later, we got another one saying you owe $26,000 or there's going to be an auction sale. So my lawyer scheduled a temporary restraining order, a hearing to stop it. So we were all prepared to challenge it and to dismiss it. So 2 hours before the hearing, my lawyer called me and told me it was canceled because Chase paid the money. So my lawyer, the condo lawyer, told Chase, and she paid them. They paid her the 38. They overpaid her. They paid her $38,000, the higher number, not the number that I owed. So that's all money that I owe to Chase, and all this is done without my knowledge. And then so they work with the management companies. And so anyway, there are a lot of dirty tricks. Like I said, the 10 years before we had this lawyer, there were no lawsuits in my building. When we had this lawyer who's chair of the Legislative Action Committee of the CAI, I looked on court cases online and put in my building, and I found 12 people in my building who were being sued. And I called them, and they were all, most of them were not legitimate, but we all pay whether we win or lose. So anyway, I just wanted to give that there are these interlocking parts. So anyway, Patrick, you did, and everyone did a great job. Do you want to say something about how to find your organization?
Right. So all of us, or most of us, are associated in one way or the other with HRLNG. That's our HOA Reform Leaders National Group, and designated HRLNG. And anyone that would like to join, just find us on Facebook. We're an organization that is trying to pull all of the states together and all the organizations from all the states to create a common effort to improve the laws throughout the states, to protect the homeowners, and make fair laws for them. Thank you very much, and we really appreciate the whistleblowers for allowing us to present today. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good job, guys. So
Thanks.
did we shut off the recording?